everyone to Diablocritics, a monthly live stream where Bible scholars take a look at questionable sermons and apologetics. Today we're continuing our look at some sermons from Pastor Mark Driscoll. Is the government attacking the Christian church? Should Christians rise up and overthrow the government? Would Jesus have stormed the Capitol on January 6th? That last one was a personal question. He didn't really ask the last one, that was just me. But here to answer your questions are our Bible scholars for today, Dr. Kip Davis, Dr. Matthew Monger, Dr. Josh Bowen, and Dr. Dan McClellan. Welcome to Diablocritics.
Good morning, everyone. How you guys doing?
Good evening, everyone. How y'all doing?
Good evening.
There we go, right? I don't know. It sort of feels like, even though Mark Driscoll didn't directly ask that question about the about the insurrection, there was some, wink, wink, nudge, nudge implication. Understand, interpret this however you will.
Well,
Is that just me?
I think you're wrong. You're wrong. I think he's insinuating that Jesus wouldn't have stormed the Capitol because he would have been the guy on the White House lawn saying storm the Capitol.
Oh, there you go.
He did overthrow tables, right? Or something in the temple?
He was a table turner.
A table turner. Yes. Yes. So, so welcome everyone to Diablocritics. It's Sunday, the 17th of November. It's just after 11 in the morning here in the Pacific Coast, the right coast, the specific coast. You regular viewers will notice a couple of things are different today. First of all, this isn't being simulcast on anyone else's channel, and that has to do with some technical glitches that we literally discovered like 3 minutes before airtime. We've been scrambling a little bit, I think, to get going today, but we're here. Most of us are here, which brings me to the second thing that everyone will have noticed. Our friend Jennifer Bird is not with us today, and I'm sad to report that she has decided to step down from the Diablocritics, from the platform. She said that when I asked her, what she wanted to say publicly about this decision, she said to me that she's tired of having to do a lot of the emotional work in responding to Christian apologists. It's not really something that she does on her own channel and her own social media platforms, and the toll in engaging them, as well as in the next day or two or three, it's been a lot for her to get out of her system. It's sad, I think. Well, I'm sad about it. And I'm, Jen, if you're watching, we miss you. But we totally get it. We support your decision, and I continue to look forward to, opportunities to work with you and to collaborate in the future on future projects. Matt was just on our channel actually a couple of days ago.
And I'm going to be on our channel coming up about a month from now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, it's so we'll.
Yeah. So internet, stop making kind of drama about us having this like backstage fight where we were throwing curse words at each other, and no, I don't think anyone thinks that we were.
I'm the only one that uses profanity off air, and it is it's pretty vicious, but none of that needs to be public. So.
And I'm the only one who uses profanity on the air. So it
not true. I'll do it too.
Not true.
So
I will say this is not, in my experience, something that is uncommon. So I'm thinking of two specific, rather high tier biblical scholars that, if I mention their names, everybody in the audience would know them.
Mm-hmm.
Have said to me, when I've approached them, hey, could you? And these are people that have done public facing work on these platforms before, and I said, hey, there's this video that's come out by this apologist who, for some godforsaken reason, people watch, and could you come and respond? And they'll just say, please don't involve me. I can't take it. I up to here with Christian apologetics. And it's unfortunate, I think, in that regard, because those Christian apologists will often take that as a W, right?
Yeah.
And say, they don't have anything to say. Well, pay attention, Christian apologetics. What they're saying is you're not worth the energy that it takes to respond to. So, take that as you will.
It's so frequently a bad faith engagement as well, that the emotional labor is so taxing. I get questions every single day across all my social media platforms. How do you deal with the emotional labor of having to engage with folks who are not going to listen, are not going to engage in good faith? And so, yeah, I think there's, I know it, and I know an awful lot of people who are like, I can never do that. I'm going to stay here in scholarship. I'm not doing public facing scholarship because it's not worth the emotional labor. So
it's almost like this state of mind you have to go into. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a Bible scholar, but when I've engaged with people online, a lot of members from my previous church about like LGBT issues or something, I have to almost go in like a emotionally like totally shut off and just be like a robot, like these are the facts and this is like, here is an argument. Like I have to be like really, because
that's my persona.
Yeah, because you can't get into the emotions of it, because it's too taxing. It's really hard to deal with. Yeah.
And I mean, sorry, just one last thing. I mean, thinking about it from somebody like Dr. Bird's perspective, she's not only having to step into that arena with bad apologetics, but she's having to step into that arena with bad apologetics that are coming at her as a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know how she put up with it as long as she did, frankly, because I certainly am not strong enough to have put up with it for that long. So,
yeah, I think that definitely is a component in this as well. So moving forward, though, I'll just get this out up front. We are not doing a show next month, and it's Christmas all month long here in Canada, so not
you guys
really.
got Christmas all month long?
Oh, yeah. Well, come on, man. You were here. So actually, though, when I went to pick up dog food last week, they already had the music on and the decorations up, and this is a little something a little different here, I think, maybe than in the States, because I think you guys at least hold off until after Thanksgiving. But yeah.
Is that
Anyways,
the problem with that early Canadian Thanksgiving thing? So maybe it is after Thanksgiving for you too, right?
That's right. It's just way
really
early. Yeah. So no show next month. And we're going to we're going to take the time and use it to maybe kind of reflect and recalibrate a little bit in terms of what we want this show to be moving forward. And I would encourage you as well in the audience, if this is a platform that you enjoy, if this is something you like us doing once a month, then please feel free to reach out and provide some thoughts and suggestions on what you would like to see as well. So yeah, with that out of the way, unless anyone else has stuff to throw in, maybe we'll just start. So
let's get into the fire.
Oh yeah, one more thing about the format for today's show. We're mixing it up. instead of saving all the super chats and the questions until the end, feel free to fire those off as they enter your brain. I don't know. Feel free to fire them off whenever you'd like to ask questions, and we'll take a look at those periodically as we go through the video today, and and we'll see how this goes. So we're continuing. Mark Driscoll did a whole series of like 3 videos called "Vote Like Jesus." I actually think this was mostly just about sending doing some free PR for his new book, which Matt actually bit the bullet and purchased and read. Thank you, Matt, for your service. So this is we've decided to jump ahead to the last video. What was the title? What's the title of the last video there?
Should conservatives overthrow the government?
And I think
conservatives overthrow the government.
And is the government attacking the Christian church?
And I think the answers to those questions are a most definite maybe, aren't they? So
I mean, I think already here we have to acknowledge that the rhetorical space that we're in this time is very different than last time, because
that's true.
Because Driscoll won. And so like we have to look at this as effective rhetoric and strategy, not just propaganda or whatever. So it's interesting. I think it's something that we, when you say should conservatives overthrow the government, well, you don't have to if you win it through the election. So I think we're already there actually. But it's just interesting to think that we sat here a month ago and wondered who would be convinced by this kind of rhetoric, and here we are.
Turns out most voters, right? Yeah,
most people.
Yeah, most people. So, yeah.
Well, not most voters, a minority, a plurality, but still a minority of the people who voted, which constitute less than half of the registered voters as well. So,
true.
A minority of a minority of voters.
Touché. Just before we start here, Jen, thank you for coming out, and we miss you. So yeah, thanks for being here. All right, so I guess let's just to kind of tee this up here. Mark Driscoll is going to talk a lot in this video about the shape of early Judaism, which is fun. So let's take a look.
Number 3 in the Vote Like Jesus sermon series, and today's topic is, what are the 5 political options for Christians? If you want to learn more, grab the book. But this is the sermon I've been the most excited about, and I believe I have some revelation for you. After more than 30 years of teaching the Bible, I'm going to share some things with you today that my assumption is most of you, perhaps none of you, have ever heard. And it's not anything that isn't in the Bible, but it hasn't been seen through the lens that I want to show it to you today. And I want you to know that here we are in our day, and we're heading into election season, and there are numerous political parties, but there are 2 primary. One to the left, the Democrats, one to the right, the Republicans. Many Christians would say we shouldn't talk about politics and political parties. Well, we must, because these things are absolutely taught and found in the Word of God. If you go back 2,000 years, there were 2 primary parties. On the left was the Sadducees, on the right was the Pharisees. In addition, there were other lesser known parties. And when we read the New Testament, we hear about parties like the Pharisees and the Sadducees. We don't know who those people are. The Bible doesn't tell us in great detail what they believed or how they behaved, because everyone 2,000 years ago knew exactly who we were talking about. Similarly, today, if I said, well, there's Democrats and Republicans, if you got a Hebrew from 2,000 years ago, they wouldn't know what we were talking about. So distance means sometimes there needs to be a little teaching to fill in the gap. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at what the New Testament says about these various parties. And I want to start with two scriptures on ancient parties, and these are like our political parties. These are social, religious, moral, spiritual, governmental commitments. And here's what we see in Acts chapter 5, verse 17. The high priest rose up, and all who were with him, that is the party of the Sadducees, and they were filled with jealousy. These would be the ancient Democrats. These are the progressives. These are the liberals. That's why I'm using my left hand. Okay, and then in Acts chapter 15, verse 5, but some believers who belonged to the party of the Pharisees rose up. They would be kind of like the Republicans. They are the conservatives. Hence, I'm using my right hand. And so what we see in the days of Jesus, there were two primary parties. One on the left, one on the right. Sound familiar? In addition, there were other parties that we will deal with as well. And so here's where the sermon is going to go. I made a chart for you, and it's in the book. There are 4 different ways that parties reacted to social, governmental, and political conditions in the first century. My thesis is that we still have those people following in these same patterns. So some were fight. These would be the ancient zealots. These would be the current modern day civil disobedience folks. You have the flee or flight. That would be the ancient Essenes. And these are the modern homesteaders and the preppers. We love you. Thanks for driving down from Payson. On the left, there would be those who were the ancient Sadducees. Today they are the modern progressives. And on the right are the ancient Pharisees, or the modern day fundamentalists. Okay? So let me summarize it for you. Political, social, moral, cultural issues. The Zealots, let's go fight. Okay? The Essenes are, let's go buy some land and avoid it. The Sadducees were, let's compromise and become liberal so we don't get in trouble with the government or with the culture. The Pharisees decided, let's go to the right, carve out a subculture, homeschool our kids, and get our candidates nominated, and no longer watch any of that stuff on Disney Plus. So these are the 4 teams. These are the 4 teams. Okay, do you get it? All right, this is going to be fun.
Should we pause it there?
Oh, yeah, let's pause it there, because there's a lot there. What is everyone's problem with, what's wrong with Disney Plus?
I think they just see too much woke stuff on there, and
too many female leads, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of like gays in the animating industry, and the gays they'll come for your kids.
Probably. But by the way, I started
joke,
watching.
Everyone,
I started watching a show on Disney Plus last week called Don't Say Anything. It's all about the IRA. It's pretty great. Anyways, yeah. So this is the outline. Driscoll has some really creative ways of presenting the situation in first century Jerusalem, first century Palestine at the time of Jesus. And he's constructed this whole message, this whole presentation on some pretty specific ideas about the people who were living there, how they were organizing themselves politically and religiously. Just one thing that stuck out to me at the outset here was Driscoll making the claim. I don't know if you guys caught that right at the outset, that he's got new revelation about this, that these are, some of his ideas about this kind of feels like he's promoting something divinely novel. I don't know.
It's definitely new. I think it's revelation.
Definitely new. So,
It's new
thoughts at the outset?
I think one of the most a phenomenally common fallacy is the assumption that everything operated identically in the ancient world as it does today. And so this notion that you can just identify parties and line them up with factions today is fallacious from the start. And all you have to do is try to generalize some feature of a specific group and generalize some feature of today. And as long as you can make those two dots connect in some way, make it seem plausible, then there you go. You've identified this. The frameworks of today are directly translatable to the ancient world. And anybody who has studied the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Zealots and the Essenes is laughing at the notion that these are analogies to what we have going on today. It's pathetic.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Did you say the Sadducees are like the progressive?
Yes.
Yeah, because of that one facet, the fact that the Sadducees were like, oh well, we'll get along with the Romans. They're gonna appoint the high priest, and we're the party of the priesthood. So we'll go ahead and just, which is wrong on so many levels, including on a scriptural level. The Sadducees were more fundamentalist than the Pharisees were. They were like, oh, you guys like the prophets? Well, and then their woke prophetic critique. Yeah, right. We're going to stick with the original scriptures, the Torah. It's so silly.
Well, I mean, and I'm just like, I kept waiting for him to get to the point of what we're supposed to be, because I mean, like, we all know that the Pharisees are like the big adversaries of Jesus, and so it just like, it makes it a little confusing when his whole goal is to promote the conservative thing. That's an ism that he, but that he kind of definitely makes the Pharisees, the
good guys,
have to be the good guys in a way.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. And then I'm thinking like, but is he gonna, like, the first time I read it, I was seriously thinking, is he gonna end up being a Samaritan? Like, is that gonna be what he wants? Is to support
right?
Like, I just didn't know where he was going, because he ran out of options, and so it's basically like, and I think that's actually kind of the point, because that's like, there's nobody that's any good, and that's kind of his whole thing throughout the whole book and the whole series, is that even all the other Christians suck, and so you just like, we're not supposed to be thinking in terms of this world at all, and so but I also want everybody just to say who they identify with in the group. What would you be? And while we're playing out this fantasy, what faction would you be?
Oh,
and by the way, he said party. He went to that translation that used party. Heresis is the Greek. Heresy is the underlying Greek term there, which basically means choice. So faction. I see the relationship, but I'm going to recommend, by the way, Sievers and Levine's edited volume, The Pharisees, a wonderful book that provides one of the most up-to-date and comprehensive discussions of what the available data indicate about the Pharisees. Because despite the generalizations made in this video, we probably have more information about the Pharisees than any other group, and that's still next to nothing. So there's an awful lot we don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So, are you seriously asking us, Matt? Who we would
we can have a little fun. We can have a little fun, can't we?
Okay.
Vishanti is Team Shammai.
I did see that. Yes, Vishanti is Team Shammai.
Did the Sadducees have lovely robes and stuff? Didn't they have like cool clothes? Like, whatever has the coolest clothes. Like, I've always been jealous of the Catholics. They have like cool outfits and stuff for their religious ceremonies, and we never had any of that. So I'd probably choose that.
Yeah, that's an
great,
understandable
David.
choice.
There you go.
I'm a Judean People's Front man myself, so
People's Front of Judea.
Those are splitters. So
Splitter.
don't want to hear it.
So yeah,
people are saying I'm really quiet. Is that
you are pretty quiet.
you are pretty quiet. Yeah.
Okay,
See if that.
What was that, David?
Sorry. Be right.
That's a dad joke.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
so I don't know. So what do you, Josh? What do you identify with?
I'd probably be standing up in a window, looking out over the crowd and saying, "You're all individuals."
So
and
you
this
have
is in the
mic
nude,
on.
right? In the
Yes.
nude. Additionally, we need
That's-
full frontal nudity on that shot too.
That's
And
the
we know
one.
Kip is a cave dweller. I mean, it's,
I was going to say, I'm from the Great White North. I'm a Samaritan dude.
Yeah. There you
Yeah.
go.
So
yeah.
We can't all be
I mean,
cheesemakers.
honestly, like I did learn something through this, that I would have been a Roman. It's
that itself is also,
I mean, that's kind of what I
I-
realized. I would have probably been like, I guess I identify with Josephus. Like they
Yeah.
come into town, they're like, what do you
So
what do you want?
traitor.
I'm like, no, dude, I can
Yeah.
be on your team. Whatever.
I can
want.
help
I'll
you.
write the
I can
story.
help you.
I'll write your story. I know the language. I can blend in. Hey, take me with you.
Something tells me I see purple in your future. I think you might become the emperor. In fact, I'm going to prophesy that right now.
did you
Let's
guys
go.
did you guys ever see the Simpsons episode where they did like the little 10-minute retelling of David and Goliath?
You mean when they like
rings
fall
a bell.
asleep in church and they fall asleep in church
I
and they
think
have their dreams?
It might have been that one when Nelson Mutz is like Goliath, but I don't know. It just made me think of that at the end there. After Bart kills Goliath, everyone's like, "Well, come on, he was a great guy." They called him Goliath, the consensus builder. So yeah. All right.
All right. Is my volume better? Someone's please say.
Yeah, it's way better.
Yeah. Now you sound like you have
way
a
better.
microphone on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
So
Okay.
I mean that. Yeah. Now that we have the roadmap, should we take a look and see what sort of fun things Driscoll has to say about early Judaism, starting with I think he starts with the Essenes actually.
All right.
Okay, well, I've increased the speed a little bit, so everyone let me know if it's too fast or not fast enough. But
For me. Okay, so what we're going to deal with now, we're going to look at each of these four teams: Zealots, Essenes, Sadducees, Pharisees. We're going to look at all four. We'll start with the Essenes. The Essenes were those who came to the conclusion, they looked at the government, they looked at the culture, and they came to the decision, it's gone. It's gone. We can't save this culture. We can't fix this government. We need to leave. So tell me if this doesn't sound familiar. They bought large acres of land. They moved out in the middle of nowhere. They put up solar panels. They got Starlink from Elon Musk. Their love language was ammo. They grew their own food. They homeschooled their kids, and they waited for the rapture. Okay, those were the ancient Essenes. And so the whole goal was just, it's collapsing. Get your family out before it's too late. Now, the Essenes are not a group that is mentioned. They're not one of the four parties mentioned in the New Testament, and here's why. They were a secret, closed group. If you wanted to join the Essenes, you had to get to know someone, which was very hard. You had to be welcomed in, and you had a 2-year process of being investigated and instructed. And the first rule you had to agree to was, you're never going to say anything about the Essenes. So people will be like, what do they believe? We don't know, because they were really good at keeping their oath. These are like secret societies or private communities. In addition, they became very popular just before Jesus. In 175 BC, there was something called the Maccabean Revolt. And here's what was happening in that day. There were Jewish believers, they studied the ancient scriptures, they were awaiting the coming of Jesus, and then there was this absolute infiltration of what was called Hellenism. Hellenism is Greek philosophy, Greek perverted sexuality, Greek culture, all coming to every sphere of society to just impose a demonic, evil, and Greek ideology on everyone and everything. Today, the equivalent would be Marxism, that shares actually some of the same core convictions and sexual perversions as ancient Hellenism. And so what happened then is that the true believers that were being pushed on by Hellenism, they pushed back. No, we believe in God. We believe in men and women. We believe that marriage is for a man and a woman. We believe that we should educate our children. We believe that we should worship our God. So then the government cracked down on them and started punishing them. So that caused many of the believers to flee and scatter and to go underground. In many nations, let's say some in the Middle East that are more Islamic or China, there's a big movement of underground persecuted Christians. It was like that leading up to the days of the coming of Jesus. Nonetheless, these were people who decided, it's just gone, get out before it's too late. How many of you say it feels a little like that? Some of you are like, I may feel that way on November 6th. Nonetheless, here are some of their heroes in the Bible. They would have looked at Noah.
Yeah, maybe just
so the whole world is
there.
collapsing. Noah builds an ark.
So,
The first rule of the Essenes is you don't talk about the Essenes.
and yet they were, very popular.
But
Just
they were
in the
waiting for
time before
Jesus. That was the best part.
I
They were just
know.
sitting there waiting for Jesus.
Well, and living within communalism as well. So
Yeah. So
and also, but if I may, real quick,
Yeah.
the notion that the Qumran community exhausts the category of Essenes is entirely inaccurate. That's just one separatist iteration of the Essenes. As far as we know, there were Essenes living within the larger communities as well. It was not all just hippies who went out to live in the woods. It was folks who were spread around Jerusalem and elsewhere as well. So that they're right there. This is drawing a false conclusion based just on a limited data set.
Yeah, I think that's pretty key, Dan. We actually, so for those in the audience who are not aware, the Essenes are generally represented in contemporary scholarship as the same people who wrote and collected the Dead Sea Scrolls, or more appropriately, the people who wrote and collected the Dead Sea Scrolls identified with the Essenes, which were actually quite a much larger movement, and they were all over the place. Josephus says that they were was it the second or the third most popular of the groups, the heresies, the parties in Judaism at the time. So, but and we have this tendency to kind of retroactively read back into the Essenes on the basis of some of the things that Josephus says, that Philo says, which may not necessarily be clear or accurate in terms of who these people actually were, what they actually thought or believed, and how they actually behaved. So, yeah.
Thank you, Chief Kip, for the lesson. That was good.
Was that okay?
Yeah. Thanks.
All right.
We're just all sitting here listening to you. I just thought somebody should just thank me.
We also have a super sticker from Steve Williams. Thank you for the $10 super sticker.
Thanks, Steve.
And we have some super chats, but I'll bring them up a bit later.
And so some wonder, was John the Baptizer, was he an Essene? Because he lived this sort of isolated life until he came into town and had fights with the government, and eventually they beheaded him. And so what happened with the Essenes, they were very big on the Holy Spirit. So they liked prophecy, and they had prophecies about political leaders. They spoke in tongues. They talked about angels and demons and the end times, and they loved to worship God. But because they were rural, they were also very conservative.
Stop
They didn't interact.
Stop.
Yeah.
The Spirit is coming upon me.
Dan, you're muted.
Sorry, excuse me. I forgot to unmute after talking with my daughter, but I was going to let Matt go.
I just was about to start speaking in tongues, man. It was about to start flowing.
Is that it?
No, so I just want to make sure everyone out there knows that not everyone gets the opportunity to go to Israel and to the West Bank, to Qumran, and see the lovely introductory film that they have at the museum, at the visitor center at Qumran. But if you do happen to get the chance, you'll understand Mark Driscoll's playfulness with the figure of John the Baptist is actually there. Like they do something out of this, and maybe even John the Baptist was here, and they really like lay it on thick, and it's this is a big thing in I think in the apologetic or Christian appropriation of the Dead Sea Scrolls, is that they do this thing where John the Baptizer was probably an Essene and probably hung out with these guys that left the Dead Sea Scrolls. So I think that's just a fun thing. That's not really good history, but that's all right.
Not even close.
And the reference to Hellenism, and now we're talking about angels and demons and stuff like that. It's like, hey, angels and demons were very much a product of Hellenism. So if you're going to talk about how these people are into angels and demons and even apocalypticism and all this is an outcome of the entanglement of Judaism and Greco-Roman philosophy and society. And the funny thing is, if you want to talk about Pharisees who become rabbinic Judaism, like one of the main reasons that Christianity and Judaism today are so disparate is because the Pharisees were like, we don't like the Greek philosophy stuff. We're going to go back to the Hebrew Bible and we're going to try to stick with that. And, that was the goal. And obviously they weren't perfect at that. But Christianity is the group of Jewish people who were like, no, we like the Greek philosophy stuff. We're going to stick with it. And then just decided to take over the Greco-Roman world. And and so when you want to talk about the demonic nature of Hellenism, it's like Christianity is what Hellenistic Judaism became when the rest of Judaism went, we're not big on Hellenism. We're going to try to go back to the Hebrew Bible. So the lack of critical thinking, the lack of scholarly insight, understanding, and even concern for the data is just baffling here. This is laughably bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's just great, like, considering that Christianity literally does away with like the ritual law in order to include wider Hellenism, not to protect the rituals and rights of the Jewish people. So it's amazing. It's lovely.
It's wild.
Every one of Driscoll's concepts of God, from the Trinity to anti-anthropomorphism, God's immateriality, all that's just Greek philosophy. That was the apologists who were like, we need to make this palatable for the Greco-Roman intelligentsia, so we're just going to make it philosophically defensible using the conventional frameworks that are in vogue right now. And then it was mainly Platonism until Aquinas came along, and then Aquinas was like, but Aristotle, and now it's just this hybrid of Aristotelian and Platonic philosophy, and they want to crap on Hellenism, like your entire worldview is not fundamentally Hellenism.
Yes, something that we're going to notice here as we go through this video is that Driscoll's whole understanding, his whole conception of this world is informed by the New Testament. I think he gets a lot of that wrong. But importantly, he's not actually interacting with like anything else from antiquity, essentially. I mean, he dabbles a little bit in the Maccabees a little later on, but it's literally just this, whatever the New Testament says about these people, about the world, is this is the way it is. It's hugely problematic. It's also really interesting to me that he, as much as he wants to show that there are these competing ideologies active within Judaism, Greek culture is just this monolithic thing, right? Without any awareness that within Greek culture, they've got people who are grappling with competing ideologies as well, and competing Hellenistic ideologies are also infecting or affecting various parts of early Judaism as well. It's just not anywhere this flat, this simplistic, this Christian or post-Christian. I don't even know how to describe it, what to call it.
We have a $5 super chat from Claude Simeon. Wasn't a lot of that through Enoch? Was that Hellenization of Judaism that then influenced Christianity, or did Christianity not actually use Enoch much?
Well, Enoch is a Hellenized spin in a lot of ways, particularly they're basing concepts of like post-mortem divine punishment and things like this on Greek ideas, and the whole idea of demons is kind of a riff on a Greek concept. But yeah, Enoch is definitely directly influencing concepts of Satan, of malevolent spirits, of post-mortem divine reward and punishment, and all of that. That's Christianity is getting that directly from Enoch, which is fundamentally, it is Hellenistic in the sense that it's adopting an awful lot of Hellenistic frameworks, but it is also objecting to and pushing back against Hellenism because the Greeks are the enemies. They're probably setting up the evil spirits that are like, come from the bodies of the Nephilim and stuff like that. These are probably the Diadochi, the successors to Alexander the Great, the oppressive emperors, the Seleucids and Ptolemies, or Ptolemies and all that kind of stuff. So they're adopting the frameworks even as they're trying to reject it, just like somebody might try to go out and get a PhD in some kind of scientific field today to then go and reject evolution or a round earth or things like that.
But I also think it's important to go back to what I don't know, one of y'all said just a minute ago, that like this idea of Hellenism as this monolithic thing. It's like I think it's more like, it would be more like saying Western culture. It's like, so you can talk about expressions of that in American popular culture, or in French popular culture, or in German popular culture, or in different things. And those are going to be very different, but they still kind of have this underlying post rationalism thing that has happened. And we share a lot of things, but when you look at each individual expression, it still is connected to its base and where it came from, and different trends and those kind of things, and the language and all this. And so like it's just kind of silly to make it about like the opposition between these things, whereas and so when we bring in Enoch and things like that, like Enoch is maybe one of the earliest expressions we have of the Hebrew interaction with Hellenism, or the way these ideas kind of get absorbed from a Greco-Hellenistic context, but like it just continues to happen, right? And so when we look at the books of the Maccabees, they are examples of Hellenistic Judaism. When we look at Jubilees, it's an example of Hellenistic Judaism that might just hate Hellenism, but still adopts the calendar and certain principles of Hellenism to fight against Hellenism. And I would say then also, we could list a bunch of books, but it's just that is what we're actually looking at, is the process of being part of the culture, but at the same time being against parts of that culture that you'd identify elsewhere.
It's just like the us, well, not us, but the royal us, ancient Jewish folks using like Aramaic and the 7-day week to condemn Babylon and the Babylonians.
Right. Exactly.
Like, go forth from Babylon with all of the trappings of Babylonian culture. But the right kind.
Also, what on earth is he makes the false equivalency here between Hellenism and Marxism. Like, what the hell is that?
It's like we need a boogeyman for the ancient world, so let's just say Hellenism, because his boogeyman for today is Marxism. He could not understand it to save his life, but it's an effective boogeyman.
Clearly.
But this is also what I talked about this last time, that there are just like a lot of bones that he likes to throw to the conservative base, where he throws in comparisons to Marxism, and he uses like the term the apostate church that supports the LGBTQ plus community, and he does this regularly throughout the book. Which is very clearly that what do you kids call it these days, virtue signaling or whatever, that he's trying to keep his base very clear about what who's the bad guys and who's the good guys,
right?
And it doesn't make sense in any of the cases that he does it. It just becomes this trope that he likes to use. And it's very, very, very nice to see that, because it's so obvious that it's just there to make somebody the boogeyman.
Yeah. And every time, like, I get, we all get Marxists thrown at us all the time, I'm sure, on social media. And it always comes down to the most ridiculous stuff. So people are like, oh, you believe in power structures? That's Marxism.
Right?
Like, what?
Yeah. I know.
That's Marxism? Yeah. It's like but you'll go off and argue about how our team needs to be the ones in power, so the other team needs to be deprived of their power. But that's not Marxist. The essentialization of these categories that are used solely as identity markers, as boogeymen, is so profoundly naive. And that's just like Driscoll here is trying to sound educated about this stuff, and is basically demonstrating his abject and profound ignorance of all of it, but is deploying it effectively as a rhetorical bludgeon for his identity politics, for this virtue signaling. That's all it is. It's identity politics all the way down.
Yep.
I'm 100% convinced that no one in that audience could explain what Marxism is. Like 100%. Not one person could even give a basic definition, except for bad.
No.
It has something to do with tariffs, or opposition to tariffs, certainly.
That's gotta be it.
Well, I mean, you know why the Assemblies of God only uses 3 Gospels.
What?
Because somebody told them they needed to make sure they avoided Marxism.
Oh, that's like...
Sorry.
There's a whole book about God drinking coffee. He brews.
The show today is no exception to some of the great work that I've done in the past.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. Thanks. No, what was that, David? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, are we going to continue on?
Maybe we should continue on. Should we do, there's a couple of, they're comments, but should we get the super chats out of the way here first?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
So we have the first super chat that came in. Thank you. Actually, can someone else read this? I'm bad at reading. Satan 616.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. Speaking against the sexual abuser as the new president, I hope people realize with your wise words that he makes the U.S. a less safer place. Kip can tell you about Chrissy Hansen. Oh, I know about Chris.
Yeah.
That is a loss for all of us.
Yep.
Scholarship is already suffering because of the fact that people are going to be less safe, are going to perceive to be themselves less safe, and are going to actually be less safe as a result of the empowerment of this very, very toxic Christian nationalism and masculinity that now feels it has a mandate, which is just awful. But this is a reference to a video of mine that I recently published about why, speaking from the perspective of cognitive sciences, why people are retreating to protecting their self-image and their sense of self-worth and things like that, and in doing so are facilitating putting phenomenally dangerous people in positions of power. So it is disgusting, and it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better.
So maybe for those who are unaware, Chrissy Hansen is she's a content creator and an often a frequent participant in a lot of YouTube biblical studies content, and she has decided,
and within the academy has recently published a book and has had a handful of papers come out in the last couple of years.
Yeah, she's very prolific. A lot of her stuff is really good too, which you can't say about everyone who's really prolific. But she has unfortunately decided to take a step back out of public and social media spaces just because she's afraid. Yeah, so that sucks. But thank you very much, Satan616, for the super chat. I just wanted to point out here, everyone, Jen is still doing things on her channel. So if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you subscribe to Jen's channel. She's live every Thursday afternoon. Go check her out, and all of her other stuff. Continue supporting Jen, please. And then Wade Rogers, thank you for the $10 super chat. Wow, all my favorite PhD biblical scholars in one podcast. What worries me most about these obvious attempts to conflate political... what worries you most about these obvious attempts to conflate political ideologies with religious theologies in our current body politic? Well, I'll start just by saying that what alarms me the most right now is just the rapid rise of modern Christian nationalism has been shocking and scary. I'll just say that.
I'll just say MAGA. MAGA is terrifying.
Yeah,
I'd endorse both of those ideas.
Yeah, but thank you, Wade Rogers, for the super.
Sorry, I was muted. I was trying to talk. I mute myself because I live in a home with people. So, I
live in a cave. You need to
that's what I was
get
trying
into the
to
cave,
insinuate.
and you're fine.
But anyway, no. I mean, I'll be whatever, provocative or whatever. But I mean, my biggest fear, my biggest concern is the growing divide, in which I think that there is definitely a massive problem with the way things get conflated on the right, but we also have this problem that as things become scarier on one side, there becomes the fear of militant response on the opposite side as well. And so it's that divide that frightens me the most, because ideologies tend to be stronger against strong ideologies. And so my biggest fear is that things continue to split apart until there's no way to bridge gaps. So it's the development of stronger and stronger ideologies, no matter what, is very frightening for me.
Yeah, I think dehumanization tends to kick in pretty quickly for all sides. Once the other side is seen as beyond saving, then it becomes it gets dismissed in dehumanizing ways, and that's when it becomes a lot easier to authorize, to validate, to rationalize, taking away liberties, even hurting people. So,
Okay, there's one thing I was going to mention before, which was, Chrissy's part of the LGBT community, and I hang out in some of the darker corners of the internet sometimes. Not hang out, but peruse. and the amount of anti-LGBT and trans stuff that's like popped off ever since the election in the US has been crazy. Like there's just like on there, it's like it seems to be like open season for like hate crimes essentially, and it's disgusting. So that's also a very scary thing.
Yeah, that's nuts. So I wanted to. Another question did come in, and I thought I should probably answer it. What is your opinion on Titus Kennedy? I don't know much about him, but I saw him as part of the 2023 Science and Faith Conference, and he seems to put forth there's a case for evidence for Exodus.
At a Science and Faith Conference? No.
Clearly an academic conference, if there ever was one. Science and Faith, yes. So Titus Kennedy teaches archaeology at Biola University, which is where Sean McDowell teaches apologetics, and where Carmen Imes teaches biblical studies. So he is I honestly don't know a lot about him, except for the fact that he also had something to do with this TBN TV show on archaeology a number of years back. He's and the only reason I know that is because I used to work for the Museum of the Bible, and they've got stuff from him and his show featured in some of their exhibits. Anyhow, I honestly don't know a lot about his archaeology credentials, but he's not someone that I see publishing much in the critical field, in the critical journals and those sorts of places. I know him entirely as basically an archaeologist who does Christian apologetics. I know he advocates for an early date of the Exodus, which is even less plausible than a later Exodus, and everyone should know. I already have some pretty strong feelings about that. So yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't think he's awesome.
we have another super chat, and Kip, I just thought not super chat, another chat. I just thought I'd like to get a one-word answer to this question from Kip. What is your opinion of David Falk?
A one-word answer.
One word.
Just
there we go. That's a good word.
That's I guess that's a word, right?
Why would he take the time to write out
Yeah.
Or is that
All
deep a cut that nobody gets?
Pretty deep. All right. Should we continue with the video?
Yeah.
By the way, everyone, Josh had to step away. He's going to try to get back, but he's got a house full of kids, so we'll see how that goes.
I just also want to mention, is anyone else getting stressed out by the way that Mark is breathing? He must be like sick or something, but like it's stressing me out. It feels like he's like can't breathe or something. And it's just, anyway, I've probably ruined it for everyone. So enjoy that. Leave a comment if you're also getting stressed out.
He's a super
interact with outside
person.
Yeah.
Do you want to jump? You want to jump ahead to 2029? I think is the next one there, right? So.
Scenes. Now we'll look at the ancient Zealots, and tell you a little bit about the ancient Zealots. And here was their view: the government's wrong. We need to take it down. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, we also call this real men. Anyways. So let me just tell you the story of how we got the Zealots. This is one of the most amazing stories, and it's found in a book called 1st and 2nd Maccabees. So there are 66 books in the Bible. If you go to the Catholic Bible, they threw a few in trying to shore up some things that God didn't say, and 2 of the books in there are called 1st and 2nd Maccabees. Those books are not bad. They're good history, but they're not Bible. So they give you some good history to understand what is in the Bible. Nonetheless, the Maccabean revolt and 1st and 2nd Maccabees, it started in the Old Testament book of Daniel. Daniel was a prophet. Daniel 11, I preached the whole book of Daniel. You can find it at realfaith.com, and there's a study guide there as well. But in Daniel chapter 11, it prophesies, God does through Daniel, 5 political leaders and 150 years of rising and falling of various governments. It's absolutely political, right there in God's word. The prophecy was given in the days of Daniel that a demonic, horrific, awful political leader would rise up and he would do some abominable things. This was fulfilled with a guy named Antiochus the Great. He was a murderous, bloodthirsty man. He ran the nation like a drug cartel kingpin. If you were loyal to him, he would reward you, and if you crossed him, he would gut you. He was a ferocious and fearsome, evil, demonic man. And in fulfillment to the prophecy in Daniel 11, he went off to war with his soldiers, and he lost. Now he's got to make the return trip home. The morale of his soldiers is very low, because when you would go to war, you would conquer your enemy, and then you would plunder them. That's how you'd pay your soldiers. If you lose, they don't get any pay. He also had a massive tax burden that he owed to the Roman government, and now he can't feed his militia army. He can't fund them. As they're heading through or by the temple in Israel, it dawns on him, God's temple's filled with gold. I bet you they can't defend it. If we take this armed militia and we attack, we could overtake the temple, the house of God, and we could take all of the gold and possessions for ourselves. This is sadly, tragically, exactly what he does. And he murders, and his soldiers murder 80,000 of God's people. This would be like today. All the drug cartels that have invaded our nation conspired together to just attack churches in a city, and in one weekend, they slaughtered 80,000 people and gutted and looted every single church. This would be the emotional, spiritual equivalent of this dark day. Then, instead of God being worshipped, when they overtook the temple, they put up demonic...
there. That's quite the history lesson. Just so everyone's clear, no, not at all. That is not at all what it would be like today. What Mark just described. There's some pretty glaring errors in that rehearsal of early Jewish history. I think even starting with the primary antagonist in this story here was not Antiochus the Great. The man that he's attempting to identify here is Antiochus IV Epiphanes, who was the son of Antiochus III, Antiochus the Great. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that was just a slip. I suspect not, though. I suspect that Mark just doesn't know.
Oh yeah, no, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
He probably just thinks there was one of them.
He just looked this up on Wikipedia and got the broad outline.
I would hope that even Wikipedia would get the distinction between.
Well, he probably just garbled it
But isn't this just absolutely lovely when he's trying to tell us that the book of Daniel is correct in its prophecies?
Yeah.
Right. And then he ends up doing exactly what the book of Daniel does by getting the kings wrong, getting the rulers wrong. And so it's like he just shows us exactly how it is when you don't do good enough research because you weren't actually there, you weren't actually part of it, and you just don't have it right in front of you, and you just get the names wrong. You get a name wrong. So what? I'm sure his audience is sitting there going, oh, he meant Antiochus Epiphanes because he was really the great in relation to the Jewish temple. Yeah, I don't know where that voice came. I do these voices.
That was a good one, though. I like that.
I still miss the miracle from last week.
Right.
Keep playing from the same spot or skip ahead?
No, skip ahead to the next timestamp. 31, 39, I think. Yeah.
Sorry.
No need of you. I'm going to execute you. You ready to have your mind melt out of your ears?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Here we go. Judas Iscariot may refer to the Sicarii. Sicarii in the ancient
just
world means
for a
dagger
second,
men
just to
who concealed carried weapons.
for people. Just to clarify for people, he just went through the rehearsal of who the Zealots were. This Jewish group of probably militant resistors to Roman rule, and traced their roots to the Hasmonean revolt, which is really when most of these Jewish sects tend to trace their roots to things going on in the 3rd and then the 2nd century BCE. But so yes, the word commonly associated with the Zealots was the Sicarii. Continue.
Weapons in their day, it was knives. They were trained in combat to overthrow the government for God. So in the ancient world, if you were a zealot, you were always waiting for a fight with the government. So you would conceal carry. We all said? Amen. Okay, so you would conceal carry. Because if the government's got a weapon and you don't, and the government is evil, if you need to protect yourself or your family, you need to be prepared to do so. So the Sicarii, they were the dagger.
Yeah.
It was assassination. It was not self-defense.
Yes.
They went into crowds and they went and ran. These were intentional, aggressive, offensive assassination attempts. And he's trying to paint them as 2A.
Just some good old Texas boys.
Oh my gosh.
The Proud Boys. Oh,
what a clown.
Yeah.
What a clown.
Yes. What a clown.
The concealed weapon of choice in the 1st century was a small dagger. It's called a Sicarii. Today we still use this language. You ever heard of the Sicario? Similar concept. Judas Iscariot may be Judas Sicarii, Judas the dagger man. These were the zealots in the days of the early church and Jesus Christ. This word Sicarii, it also appears in the New Testament, Acts 21:38, and it's translated this way: are you not the Egyptian men who recently stirred up a revolt, right? Insurrectionist revolt, take down the government, and led the 4,000 men of the assassins. In the Greek,
I got it right. That's
the Sicarii. Out into the wilderness. It is possible that the reason that Judas attacked and murdered Jesus is because he was a wrongly informed zealot and he was a dagger man. And once Jesus decided that he didn't want to be king just yet, Judas decided that he needed to end his life.
Let's pause here again, if you don't mind. This is taking. Okay, Matthew, you're muted, but it sounds like you're bidding us adieu.
No. I was just saying, was that his mic drop?
Yeah.
He's like, maybe Judas tried to kill him.
Yeah, crickets. This is taking a theory, not a great theory, and extrapolating an awful lot more from it in order to try to draw lines of connection with today. But it probably has nothing to do with the Sicarii, and also the notion that Judas was trying to recreate Judas's motivations based on this idea that his name connects him with the Sicarii is pretty silly, particularly when you start with the earliest gospel, Mark. I think there's a good case to make that Judas is just kind of being represented as a bit of he thinks he's setting up the showdown and it doesn't work out. And so he's devastated by this. It's not until the later 3 gospels that he is increasingly set up as a wicked, demon-inspired villain. Because in the beginning, in Mark, the only verb that has anything to do with Judas betraying Jesus is just the reference to him handing Jesus over. It's not really a value judgment in Mark. It's not until later that Satan entered into him and inspired him to do that's biblical. So yeah, there's just so much building on post-biblical tradition that he's doing. He's not going from the Bible.
Yeah.
He's going from post-biblical traditions and using them as a foundation for all these zany, wild theories about how this is relevant to today.
Yeah, and I mean, he literally says like that Judas, like he thinks it's entirely possible that Judas assassinated Jesus. Like that's what he said. He didn't say like
he said he murdered him.
Yeah, assassinated him, and like, and that's funny. Like that's I mean, like the better comparison would be like that Judas was part of this group and used the FBI. I told the popo on him, like that's like I was politically motivated that he was the inside guy, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but I don't know a lot of people that think Judas actually stuck a dagger in Jesus and then there was a cover up by crucifying him or something. Like,
use the chemtrails to cover it up.
But I mean, seriously, I've never heard that as a theory. Like, yeah.
Well, you've got to squint at the details so they blur. And then you can just identify whatever features you want of this blurry image and say, see, it looks like a duck. And then you can go on your duck rant when it has nothing to do with any of the actual features of the story.
Correct.
I do want to say my favorite comment, I think, ever is Vishanti's Judas is Baraka from Mortal Kombat. Of course, I had to see that. So this is AI imagery that I just popped in. There's Judas says Baraka from Mortal Kombat.
Wow.
So,
yeah, clearly.
That's almost as historical as what Mark's doing, right?
How many of you never heard this? All right, so
because you just made it up.
So let me ask another question.
Yeah, right.
You ready?
They are eating.
Are you ready, guys? Is Jesus a zealot?
What do you think? It's very quiet. Let's read. Here's Jesus' second coming. I'll read it for you. Revelation 19, 11 through 16. I saw heaven open. Behold, a white horse. The good guy always rides the white horse. Every Western, the good guy wears the white horse. The good guy, he gets to wear the white hat. Here he is.
Gandalf.
The one sitting on it is called Faithful and True. And in righteousness, he judges and makes what? He's zealous. His eyes are like a flame of fire. And on his head are many diadems. That's a crown, because he's the King of Kings coming to judge the nations. He is clothed in a robe dipped in blood, and the name by which he is called is the Word of God. And the armies of heaven, this is militant Christ, arrayed in fine linen, white and pure, were following him on white horses. From his mouth comes a sharp sakare. Jesus comes back as a dagger man with which to strike down the nations. So there was the first and second coming of Jesus. The first coming of Jesus, he was tender. The second coming.
That's not a Sakari. That's coming out of Jesus' mouth. I don't know. What is it?
I'm looking. Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah, it's
the
Romphea.
Yeah, it's a sword.
Yeah, it's not a Sakari.
Yeah. Nicely done, Mark Driscoll. So,
but like it's really like I think this like when we're looking at that from a scholarly perspective, it's just like it's so far from like engaging with actual thoughts about Jesus's first coming versus second coming, because what he says, and we just cut off that just at the moment when he says his first coming was tender, right? like he's saying like the first so Jesus did not wage war in his first coming, right? But he's a zealot, and when he comes back the second time, he's going to become with like flames and swords out his mouth and all that stuff. But like he's not engaging with the fact that the expectation for a Messiah would be to change the political system to the favor of the Jews. And what Jesus didn't do was fix problems through a militant way. And And the reason why people have these visions and plans for him to do it in the future is because that's what they feel needed to be done.
Yeah.
It's not like there's not, I don't feel like there's a lot of scholarly engagement with ideas that that it's the inverse, that it was that Jesus turns into a zealot. I don't know if I'm making my point very clear, but I just think it seems to be completely lacking an understanding of what the expectation of Messiah was, and the point of these post Jesus, post resurrection, whatever, apocalyptic images. It's because what we're dealing with is precisely the lack of zealotry.
Well, or at least the failure of his mission. I think, and Reza Aslan reconstructs Jesus as
That's his
more of
book's
a
called
zealot.
The Zealot.
But he ultimately fails. He is executed. And so, and for someone living in the actual temporal existence of the historical Jesus, would have seen him and understood him, and he probably would have presented himself as, if not the curator of this apocalyptic showdown, at least the forerunner to it. Like, it all would have been very zealot. And then they saw him on the cross, and they're like, "Oh crap, we got to figure something out here." And what you come up with is, oh, this was a spiritual salvation that he was preaching, but then you still got the component of your movement that has that revenge fantasy, which is what the book of Revelation is. And Mark is kind of mushing it all together. The presupposition of univocality means that Revelation 19 has to mean all of the exact same stuff that the author of the Gospel of Matthew and the author of the Gospel of John and Paul all meant as well. And so you can it's all fungible, and you can just mix it together and draw out whatever passage you want to try to present this image of Jesus. And but yeah, just profoundly uncritical, unself-critical, this representation of Jesus.
Profoundly. Yes.
Can I just ask a quick question? I know that Dr. James Tabor has floated this idea, at least to me, that the Dead Sea Scrolls community might have been the Essenes, or might have been associated with the Essenes, let's just say the Dead Sea Scrolls community, they had these ideas that very align with some of Jesus' teaching, like they called the Pharisees and Sadducees a brood of thieves and a den of vipers, and there's a bunch of different analogies that he draws out. Have you guys looked into that or thought about that much, or do you have disagreements or agreements about that? Or
most scholars think that there is some conceptual overlap in some of the language, some of the dualism, the light and dark, and all this kind of stuff, but that was just kind of drawing from a shared sociocultural matrix.
Yeah,
there was no direction of influence. It was just different groups are kind of pulling from the same tree.
Some of these ideas that are being that Dr. Tabor is pointing to may have been pretty generally widespread among in terms of at least messianic expectation, or things like forms of ritual purity. Even though not everybody did it the same way, people had various ways of approaching ritual purity. So yeah, I think it's a more complicated situation than he presents, and I know he's. I mean, there are other things that Dr. Tabor does in his attempts to draw connections between the New Testament and the Dead Sea Scrolls that are pretty flimsy. Without getting into it, but
I just thought it'd be interesting if Jesus was maybe more in line with the Essene community rather than the Zealots. If we were to try and put Jesus in one of the camps, like where would he?
I mean, it's a good question. I tend to think that, and it's hard to pin, just because the pictures that we have of Jesus are written from this this post temple perspective, where a lot of Christian ideology is actually competing with surviving Judaism, which tends to be like a lot of like these groups. The Essenes in particular is a group of Jews that seem to have, gone the way of the Jerusalem temple when the temple was destroyed. We don't seem to hear or see a lot of them after that. And you could say the same thing with the Sadducees, if the Sadducees are indeed, aligned with Roman power, after the destruction of the temple. It's so, I mean, that's part of the problem here. I don't know. Do you guys have anything else?
Well, I mean, I think it's a little silly because on the one hand, so I don't mean to call Tabor silly because he's a good guy, a good scholar, so I don't mean it like that. But I mean that. So on the one hand, I spend a lot of time talking about and thinking about how little material we have of ancient Judaism and how every little bit helps us get a broader picture of what we can just put into this box or whatever of ancient Judaism. And so the Dead Sea Scrolls give us a lot of information about texts that were at least composed and in use in the period of ancient Judaism that we're thinking about. And that's where Christianity then also comes from. And so the New Testament and early Christian writings are part of also that kind of ancient Judaism box of stuff that we're looking at. And so when we say, oh, look, there's some similarities between this piece of evidence of ancient Jewish material and this piece, and that's all well and good, but it might just be that ancient Judaism was like that. And so that it's hard to distinguish what are the similarities on the background of that they stand in opposition to what all other ancient Jews would have thought or done or said or believed, and what is specifically connecting these two groups as something special. And so I think we just have to be very careful, but when we do that we don't exegete, two passages, one from the Dead Sea Scrolls, one from the New Testament, and say, look how similar Jesus and the Dead Sea Scrolls are, when what we really might be saying is, look what ancient Jews probably agreed fairly broadly on, and we might not get pushback from Sadducees or Pharisees or from whatever.
Yeah.
And just to clarify too, it was posed as a question to me. I think I've got a video on my channel, but it was posed as a question to me, not as like this is the facts of the matter on the ground. Like James is like, this sounds a lot like Jesus, right? I was like, yeah, that's interesting. Should we keep playing?
Yeah. How much time do you have, Matt? I know you got to check out here a little early, don't you?
Yeah, I can probably do another 10 minutes or so, and then I'm out to go. So.
Well, let's watch another segment.
Okay,
how about another one? The Pharisees. So we went forward and backward. We'll go right, then left. So the Pharisees are the conservatives. Pharisee literally means separated or pure. So we'll talk about the Pharisees. So here's option number 3, the Pharisees. These are the most influential and largest of the parties in the first century. The Pharisees were not the most educated, but they were the most influential. They appealed to the masses and those who were more blue collar. They're mentioned around 100 times in the New Testament, so they show up a lot. Again, their name means separated. So here's how the Pharisees worked. They didn't want to leave like the Essenes. They wanted to stay, but they wanted to carve out a subculture. Hey, we're schooling our kids. We're not sending them to the government school. Hey, we're not watching that garbage on the TV at our house. We don't celebrate Pride Month here. Right? So they wanted to carve out a subculture to where they could still be involved in culture, be somewhat involved in politics, but maintain their separation and their purity. The result is that over time, they become more defined by who or what they're against rather than who or what they're for. So all of a sudden, they're not thinking about being separated to be connected to God, but being separated just so that they can judge everyone and be better than everyone and condemn everyone. In Matthew 23, Jesus Christ has got an entire chapter of woes, which are curses on the Pharisees because they don't have a heart for God or for others. Their goals were separation from unbelievers and division with believers. So their whole goal was separate from unbelievers and divide from believers. You don't do it right. You're the wrong kind of Christian. We don't do it your way. They're always fighting. They're always criticizing. They're always attacking. This is why we've got more than 300 kinds of Baptists. We're the left-handed Vietnamese Baptists, and we're against the right-handed Vietnamese Baptists, because you're just like this.
It's interesting to me. It kind of sounds like Driscoll sort of describing himself here.
Well, it sounds like he's trying to suggest that there are sympathies that his contemporary audience could find and identify with all of the different schools of thought here. Matt, you've read the whole argument. You can see the end from the beginning, but and I have not. But it sounds like he's kind of saying we can identify in certain ways with all of these folks. Which is a more mature take than I would have expected amidst all of this profound ignorance.
Well, see, that's so what's interesting is when you realize that my comment, off the cuff comment about being a Roman wasn't a joke, because the Jews are the Christians. And this is so it's what he's appropriating is all of it, not just one sect, right?
Yeah.
And so what he's saying is that there's some good Christians that homestead, and there's some good Christians that stand up and fight, and there's some good Christians that are conservative and homeschool and do all this, and then there's some apostate Christians that are liberal.
Yeah.
And
the Sadducees suck all around.
But they're still Christians, and this is the point, right? Because you can take it too far as a zealot, you can take it too far as a retractor or whatever. You can take it too far in the conservatism, because he says that too. He's very clear that fundamentalism in its most conservative form is too far. He says it in the book, and I don't know if he does it in the sermon, but he gets there, and he makes it very clear that he doesn't want people to be as conservative as them. They want him to be as conservative as him, and that's important. And then you've got that other the liberal, progressive, apostate churches, and so he's defining Christianity as Judaism, and then it's all about then how do you vote, right? And that's what his whole goal is here, is to say that actually pretty much everybody agrees on conservative values except for the stupid liberals. And so let's remember what the common denominator for all these good things is.
Right-wing authoritarianism.
Yeah, precisely. Right? So I think we need to. You touched on it at the start, Dan, but I think we need to say something too about the ways in which he's drawing this connection and divide between liberal, conservative, Pharisee, Sadducee, and as you pointed out, it just depends on what you're choosing to prioritize in your own definition of what these things are. And it this is I think this was the weirdest thing to me at the outset, to hear Driscoll identify Pharisees as conservatives and Sadducees as liberals, because I mean it's just not an accurate way of labeling these things in the first place. But if you're going to, you would probably tend to think of Sadducees as like the conservatives. These are the guys who were all about let's stay in the temple, let's keep the sacrificial system going as it has been all this time. Yeah. Let's focus on just very strictly, very rigidly the Torah of Moses, and let's not let any of that other crazy stuff get into our interpretation of the religion.
And we're going to be in bed with the power structures so that we're close to access to power even if they are adulterers and rapists and all of these things. I mean, the Sadducees are much closer to contemporary Republicans than would be the Pharisees, who are the educated ones, who are the ones that are doing all the virtue signaling in the eyes of the Sadducees, who are the ones who are can't get organized to challenge the seats of power. So they would be there. There's an argument to make that they would align more with contemporary Democrats too. So yeah, but the whole notion that you can take this dichotomy in contemporary society and just superimpose it on the ancient world and that it will fit is just flawed to begin with. There's somebody mentioned Simone, I believe, mentioned one of Stephen Young's papers. So radically Jewish that he's an evangelical Christian. N.T. Wright's Judeophobic and Privileged Paul, which is a paper he published in 2022 in Interpretation, a Journal of Bible and Theology. Somebody was like, is that the actual title of a paper? Yes, it very much is. Stephen's got some great stuff.
Yeah, he does. So, and I think maybe one more thing to say here before moving on to the Sadducees, just so people have a I think a clearer understanding of this. The Pharisees, a lot of their ideology, as far as we do understand it, kind of emerged out of this recognition that within a broader Jewish diaspora, their new strategies need to be developed in order to continue our religious observance when we're so far removed from the temple, which is where a stronger focus on communal gathering and the synagogues, the houses of prayer pop up. These are centers for reading and I guess instructing scriptures and their a broader sense of what the scriptures are as well. It's a very populist kind of movement that was understandably highly popular among Jewish communities, Jewish community groups. And maybe I thought it's useful maybe also to say something else about the term Pharisee. Comes from the verb parash, which certainly in rabbinic tradition has the meaning of divide or separate. But maybe that's where the notion comes from. But importantly, this is not a term that the Pharisees ever seem to identify themselves with. It's probably a derogatory term used by outsiders to describe them. It also could have something to do with, and I think maybe a more historically clear way to define it is in terms of interpretation, reading, added discernment. So anyhow, Matt, you've got to run. Did you
have anything that's happening on your channel or anything you're doing?
Not like right now. I'm just going to go to bed. Oh no, sorry. I'm not. You meant like no? So I actually, I mean, I'm still doing stuff. I dropped a video today on Chronicles
today. Yeah,
Chronicles because when that's the Bible was written backwards and Chronicles rewriting the earlier histories of Israel is that's a gem. So that's there. Short introduction to that. Anybody wants to go look at it and.
Oh my God!
I'm pushing through, doing my stuff. Headed to San Diego to do the whole academic scene, and looking forward to see you guys there. And yeah, thanks everybody. I will. I guess I'll see you on the other side of the pond, on y'all's side of the pond. Well,
Yeah.
So I'll come see you sometime, David.
I'm gonna have to check out.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. See you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
See ya.
Awesome.
Bye.
Take care, Matt.
By the way, we
If
need
I
a-
might,
Yep.
I
Go
was
ahead,
just gonna say
David.
quickly, we need a Diablocritics shirt that's like data over dogma. That's your thing, right, Dan? And then we need the Bible was written backwards. We just need to get all like the, that's the, I don't know, do something. Anyway,
the
keep going.
mottos.
What were you saying?
The motto.
Yeah,
So-
the mottos, yeah.
The very first chapter of this Pharisees book is interpreting the name Pharisee by Craig Morrison, and I think the conclusion is pretty handy. As Juliet recognized 4 centuries ago, there's nothing more to the name Pharisee than a reference to a person or a community. And he talks about how the etymological fallacy needs to be dismissed because the name began to be used as a way to index a specific group, and then the etymological sense of the name just ceases to be relevant. Like my name Daniel means God is my judge. An awful lot of people named Daniel go through their entire lives without ever knowing or caring what the etymology of their name is, because it's just an index for a person. And so Pharisee is much the same. That name did not govern how they understood themselves. It certainly didn't govern how they interacted with different social groups and things like that. So that's just an etymological fallacy to begin with.
Yep.
Munger
that's
does
just Vishanti's posted a link to Matt's video that he dropped this morning, which is really, really good. So when we're done here, people should head over there.
Yeah.
So
McDonald means son of Donald, just so everyone knows, which is a really cool.
And
name.
McClellan means son of I think it's the Saint Wolf. No, son. Dang it. Son of There's a wolf in there, but it's actually quite complex, and there are over 100 different variations on the spelling.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
It's better than Donald.
Yeah.
We have another super chat.
Oh,
$50 from Emergency Moto.
Thanks for sidetracking to respond to my question. I used to listen to Driscoll when I was an evangelical, so this is very informative. Well, you're welcome. As far as Kennedy's claims, I know in the talks he claims Kenyon got stuff wrong. Future discussion, maybe. I'll just say right at the outset, Emergency Moto, you might be interested in checking out some of the stuff that Dr. Josh and I have been doing recently on particular on the conquest narratives. We talked a little bit about the archaeology of the site of Jericho, and we've got more stuff coming out on that. That's a good place to start. But honestly, I mean, Kenyon was digging back in the 1950s. She got a lot of stuff wrong, as scholars do, right? Importantly, the direction of the discussion has not shifted an iota in the direction of where apologists like Titus Kennedy want to take it. Yeah. It's just not going there. But please, thanks for watching, and thank you so much for the generous super chat. But yeah, I would recommend maybe starting with some of the things that I've had on my channel. I don't know if you've delved too much into this this discussion, Dan.
I'm aware that Kennedy published something in Religions, which is an open access journal that I've seen a few good things from, but I also see some awful things in. But his article is basically trying to advocate for the notion that there is a destruction layer that dates to when Joshua would have been coming through, and it's doing a lot of the same kind of stuff that IP has tried to do, and trying to argue from silence more or less that there could have been a wall there.
He's just doing it a couple hundred years earlier.
Yeah,
so yeah. But again, yeah. Thanks, Emergency Moto, for the super chat. You guys good to finish this out?
Yeah,
we got one more clip.
I think so. Yeah, this is about the Sadducees, those woke liberals.
There's another option. You ready? You're still with me? Okay. Here's one more. We've looked at the Zealots in the fight, Essenes in the flee, the Pharisees on the right. Now we're going to deal with the Sadducees on the left. The Sadducees are mentioned around 14 times or so in the New Testament, and it means righteous or pure. These are your smarmy, progressive, spiritual media darlings. They are. These would be your progressives on the left. These would be your pseudo-Christian but anti-Christ people. And again, what they embraced was Hellenism. As I articulated, Hellenism was this cultural, spiritual, political force pushing Greek philosophy, Greek sexuality, Greek ideology on people. And it's much like modern day Marxism. And what the Sadducees decided was, that's fine, we'll accept it, and we'll take a little bit of the Bible and a little bit of Hellenism, and we'll mix them together so that we don't get in trouble with the culture and the government. They were a bunch of compromising cowards. As a result, they did not accept all the scriptures. They got rid of the parts about people being sinful. This is just like the progressive agenda today. They got rid of the miracles. They got rid of angels and demons. They got rid of heaven and hell. What they decided was, we're all good people. We all need to work together and save the planet. Sound familiar? That's exactly the agenda. They removed entire books of the Bible, like Daniel. And today, their descendants would be a group called the Red Letter Christians. They say, we don't believe the Bible, only the words of Jesus in red. Well, what about the part where he said that marriage is a man and a woman? Do you believe that part? What about the part where he said that he nuked Sodom and Gomorrah because they were naughty? Do you see? Even the red letter Christians don't even believe the red parts because they haven't read it. And so what happens is, the Sadducees, these are the liberals, they don't agree with the Pharisees, but sometimes they work together to attack Jesus. It's an unholy alliance. What they both say is, well, we don't like each other, but we both realize that he's a threat to our power, so let's come together to crucify him.
All right.
And the Sadducees were much smaller in number.
That's probably good.
Kip,
Look, I wouldn't say good. I would say it's probably enough.
There we go.
Is there any? I have to ask Kip. Is there any long-term health effect, health problems that come from listening to too much Mark? Because
I mean, you could end up
having a brain aneurysm or something.
Like I do, which is not great. But listen, I wanted to throw this out there. This is so bad, guys, that even S.J. Thomason is going, what? It's good to see you, S.J. Yeah, thanks for coming out. But seriously, what is this nonsense? Here's where I'll start, okay? Right away. There's a fundamental historical failure here in his appraisal of what early Jews are doing with scriptures. Just full stop.
There was no such thing as a Bible when any part of the New Testament was being written or even edited.
No, and no one was taking things out.
Yeah.
Right?
And which is silly. It's like when the Sadducees were around, if you wanted to talk about hagiography, the writings, the scriptures, the Maccabees were definitely hagiography in that time period. Enoch was considered hagiography, part of the writings during that time period. It's not that, because he just a little bit earlier he was talking about how this is good, Maccabees is good history, but not Bible, not biblical. He did the exact same thing. He just said, well, we don't count this stuff. But he's getting upset with the Sadducees for saying, oh, we don't count this stuff. Before it was all ironed out into a Bible. So good grief. How hypocritical and selective do you have to be? To me, it's just saying our version is the right version. And if it's different from our version, whether you have more books than us or fewer books than us, you're wrong. So yikes. Yeah. Historically, just totally ignorant.
Just totally. So yeah, I honestly, I don't even know. That kind of broke my brain. I'm not even sure.
My brain feels melted.
They took books out of the Bible.
Yeah.
What? It's so silly.
It is.
What is it? it's like that saying, it's like it's not even wrong. It's like so far out of like, it's so far wrong that it's not even wrong. It's like, it's not even in the same universe of what could be right or wrong.
Yeah, it's nutty. So and maybe that's enough of that, right?
Hopefully
Like,
we've ruined everyone's nights and days, and
now that we've wrecked it. So I guess yes. But maybe some takeaways, I guess, of what Mark is doing.
Yeah, Mark is trying to, I think, in the grand scheme of things, something that pretty much everyone who preaches from a Bible to a group of congregants is trying to do is to say we're a part of the same narrative. That they're trying to draw lines of connection between what we're reading about in the text and today, to say it's one story, it's one macro narrative, and we're a part of the narrative, and we can find ourselves in the text, and we can see the same struggles, and we can identify the same groups, and we can identify ourselves within those groups as a way to take the lessons from the text and superimpose them on today and say, you know how you see yourself in those texts? Well, what happened in those texts, and who was right, who was wrong, who were the good guys, who were the bad guys? Superimpose it on today. Now you know the way forward for today. And as usual, whoever your group is, you're the good guys. Whoever's not your group, they're the bad guys. And so it's just identity politics. It's just saying the good guys are us and the bad guys are them.
Yeah.
And now today's good guys are us. The bad guys are the people all around us. Be the good guys. Go do all the costly signaling, all the credibility enhancing displays, all the virtue signaling, so that we can just continue to agree that we're the good guys. It is doing the same thing that people have been doing for 2,000 plus years, which is just try to say, look how awesome we are. Look how much everybody else sucks. Stay in the awesome group. Do the things that you have to do to signal to other people you're part of the awesome group, and we'll continue just being awesome. And only it's appealing in a phenomenally ignorant way to misinformation and disinformation and just an awful grasp of history and just an awful hermeneutic as well.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I wish I didn't feel like I had to say this. It's sad to me that I feel like I have to say this, but one of the things that this series of videos really, I think, just emphasizes is how much people who go to church every Sunday, and I would say that this regardless of wherever you choose to worship on Sundays, just need to be really, really careful about the messages that are being delivered from the pulpit as an authoritative scholarly perspective of the Bible. Fortunately, there are terrific there are terrific ministers and preachers who work hard to get their scholarship right and to provide accurate pictures of the Bible to their congregations. But very sadly, there are so many places where these messages about the Bible are promoted with authority that have absolutely no scholarly rigor behind them.
Yeah.
And that sucks. And I, as a scholar, this is where some of my anxiety, a lot of my anxiety and my frustration continues to be, is in this perspective that expertise in my field comes from the pulpit when it does not.
Yeah. Like when every now and then, and I'm sure, Kip, you've had this happen many times as well. Oh, I have a PhD in Bible. Oh, are you going to be a minister? Are you going to be a preacher? Oh, my brother's a preacher too.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's like, no. That's a very different thing.
It's a very different thing. And I'll just say I might have shared some of this publicly before, but I came out of a church tradition. One of the last churches that I did attend was when people find out who I am and what I do, there's often interest in Christian communities, right? About well, because they're interested in the Bible. And I'll just say this, like within a fairly short period of time in one of these last churches that I used to attend, I very quickly became an unwelcome presence by the leadership, because they had an agenda that was not scholarly.
Yeah,
that was kind of gross in a lot of respects, and they couldn't stomach and they couldn't tolerate academic challenges to what they were attempting to do from the pulpit. So,
and the priorities are very different. In scholarship, your priorities are primarily trying to better understand things. Institutions, overwhelmingly, their priority is going to be protecting their interests, which usually have to do with their access to power and values and resources, and their boundary maintenance. Their boundaries are very important to institutions. And when you combine the two, that is oil and water. And because I think that's for a lot of people, I don't compute for them. They're like, well, what do you believe? No, that's irrelevant. And they're like, how can it be irrelevant? And it's like, because I'm here as a scholar, and I'm here to prioritize whatever the data support, absolutely irrespective of whatever it means to my religious identity or my religious beliefs. And a lot of people are not willing to hold those things in tension.
Yeah, well said.
No,
the Dr. Josh has who's not here, one of his books. I think it was the Atheist Handbook to the Old Testament, or maybe the number 1 or number 2, talks about teaching in one of his churches about the Epic of Gilgamesh when he was teaching a class.
Pretty sure that's volume 2.
Volume 2, yeah. And then everyone got was really interested in it, but he was trying to show that he was trying to frame it in a really positive light, but then they came back and said, no, this is wrong, this is not okay. The next week, he got essentially in trouble or something of that respect for just teaching what history says.
And that pressure's there, right? Like, I have this distinct memory of teaching a course at the Evangelical Christian University where I used to teach, and my classroom looking like they were pretty bummed out about what I was doing. And when I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like talk to me. What's happening here? One of them just said, they're like, well, it just really feels like you're being just very adversarial to the Bible. And it's one of those things that I took to heart and probably affected the way that I went on to continue my presentation.
Yeah,
through the rest of the course. Look what we have here.
So I was showing this earlier. I have some advanced readers copies, which just came yesterday in the mail. To my knowledge, these are the first to see the outside of the publisher's building.
Are they still worn, Dan?
No, they've been in my office overnight.
Oh.
And I begin talking about how much I love the Bible, but also about how a lot of people, there's a difference between the Bible and their understanding, their interpretation, their ideas about the Bible. And because so many people are so caught up in the latter, when I am talking about what's actually in the Bible, it feels like I'm attacking the Bible. And I get because you can take a perfectly respectful, hey, this is what the Bible says, and people are like, how dare you attack the Bible? It's like, I am 100% just sharing at what the Bible says, and what's being undermined is their interpretation, their understanding, this thing that is not the Bible that they are holding in their head and thinking it is isometric with the Bible. And that is, I think that's one of the sources of a lot of the pushback that I get, is the fact that folks are not willing to understand the Bible on anything other than the terms that it serves within their head. So to say, well, that's wrong, is to, critique and condemn something that they identify with, and it gives them that intuitive pinch related to their own sense of self-worth and self-esteem and self-image and everything like that, which, getting back into cognitive science of religion. But we're going to be doing a giveaway next month on these. I'll have more details.
Hey.
This
That's
specific
awesome.
paperback advanced readers edition, which is not the final version of the book, but and the regular ones are still available for pre-order. And I'm going to be recording or narrating, as they say in the industry, the audio book come, I think, February or March. I'll be doing the recording. So very excited to get that out of the way. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
I'm gonna get both, obviously, because I listen to it, plug notes, and then stick it in. But everyone should go pick it up. It's for a non-expert audience, right? It's for
yes. The publisher was basically like, can you do a greatest hits of your videos? And I was like, I tell you what, I'll do The Bible Says So. It'll be all the things that people say the Bible says. And they were like, great. You can just transcribe your videos if you want. Like it should be that level, that voice, everything needs to be really, informal and accessible. So that's what I tried to make it. And so, yeah, hopefully I hit the target, or at least got close to it.
I want to say back to what we were saying before is there seems to be this conflict between scholarship and these people like preachers and stuff like that. And I think it's because faith is almost, and I'd like to get your thoughts. Faith is almost it's hope in something. It's the opposite of looking at something with critical eyes or examining something. So a great example of this is one time we were setting up for a party and it looked like it was going to rain, and it looked like it was going to rain, and people were really hoping that it wasn't going to rain. And I looked at the forecast and said, "Oh, it looks like it's going to rain." And some people said, "No, don't say that, like, because we're And so my factual look at the information came as an attack on the hope that they were holding into. So it's almost like faith is this idea of like, this is what we agree, this is our hope, this is our ideas, and anything that then says, well, hang on, what about that bit there? It feels like an attack, because faith is the antithesis to it's like a hope. It's the art part of the brain, and that's how I kind of see this whole thing. So even though Dan, you're right that you love the Bible, I'm sure you're going to get a lot of people saying, no, you don't. You're a tool of Satan, and et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, I do every day.
Yeah.
And there,
looks like
Kip's gone.
Okay. All righty. We have, I believe we had one other super chat.
And Kip's back.
Yes.
I am back. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. So I'm a knob. Did you guys know that early Mandean religious concepts and terminologies recur in the Dead Sea Scrolls, like Genesis, Apocryphon, and the Community Rule? Like there is some. There's some. Oh yeah, here we go. Terms like Mara de Rabuta, Lord of Greatness, Bechri, Zitka, the Chosen Righteous, Benai, Nechura, Sons of Light, Bitmanda, the Great Building of Truth, Tushlema, I think it's Shlema, House of Perfection. I was aware of some thought that these Mandean concepts may have emerged from something that looked like whatever happened to the Dead Sea Scrolls community after after the end of the Dead Sea Scrolls community. I mean, Mandean, as far as I'm aware, it's Mandeanism, Mandean. What? Yeah, it's. I mean, it's pretty late. I think it's medieval at its earliest stages, if I'm not correct. I don't know. Do you know anything about Mandeanism?
James McGrath is the expert on the Mandaeans, and he just came out last month.
Oh, yeah.
With a more academic take on a biography of John the Baptist called John of History, Baptist of Faith: The Quest for the Historical Baptizer. And James actually talks quite a bit about the relationship of the Mandaeans to John the Baptist. And so I don't think it's as late as medieval. I think James thinks this goes back to second, third, possibly late first century CE movements. And certainly the direction of influences from Akkadian and then Dead Sea Scroll language into Mandaism rather than the other way around. But this book has quite a bit of discussion.
Thanks for that. I haven't had a chance to read James's book yet, but that would definitely be the place to go. Who asked that question? I'll just that was Vesper, right? Yeah. So that would definitely be the place to go to get a clear academic understanding of these sorts of connections. But thanks, Dan. All right, so what's going on this next week?
This is what's going on for me until like the next year.
There you go. Well, that's not all of it, I think. Is it?
No,
Dan?
No, that's not all. Next week is SBL. That's my Graceland. So I'm going to be joining you, Kip, and Matt's going to be there. Is Josh coming?
Josh is not coming.
No, Josh is not coming. Okay.
Jen is also going to be at SBL.
Okay.
And on, I thought I would share this with everyone. We haven't set up anything together, at least not yet. But one thing that is happening is that for anyone who is in the San Diego area, we're going to be hanging around the convention center for several days. But one place that I think all of us intend to be for even just a short period of time is the Sunday screenings. There's a bit of a party taking place at the what's it called? Let me pull it up here. It's the San Diego. Here, let me see. Sorry, I should have had this ready. The San Diego Media Arts Digital Gym Cinema on Sunday, the 24th of November, from 4:30 to 9:30 p.m. There's going to be 2 screenings of the film, and there's just going to be there's apparently going to be free wine in the lobby, so don't drive, everyone. And I'll be there for a time. I think you said, Dan, that you might be able to find some time to pop by.
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
My schedule, these days my schedule is so much more packed than I would like it to be for SPL, which is
as always
a blessing and a curse. I used to just be able to hang out the whole time. So that looks like that's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, give or take a block or two. It's about 10 blocks away from the convention center.
Oh, is it 10 blocks? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty far.
Northeast. So you got to pass the Petco. You got to go up there. It's on Market Street between 11th and Park Boulevard.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right.
So I don't think I would be able to hike all the way out there if that's where everything's going on. But I see you're doing moderating the. I'm
gonna be moderating the Q&A between screenings. So if anyone is in the San Diego and wants to meet me, that's where I'll be on Sunday. And I don't know, we'll figure out some other stuff too, I am sure. So yeah, so that's what's going on. I'm excited about it. Yeah, David, you got anything?
We have an interview coming out this week. It's already the raw and unfiltered version is on Patreon, on patreon.com/deepdrinks. But we have John Perry of Stated Clearly coming on to talk about creationist arguments and evolution science and biology on Deep Drinks. Kip, you're coming on soon. Hopefully, Dan, you're coming on soon. And yeah, we've got some cool episodes coming up.
Awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, I think that's it. That's it for us. All right.
Awesome.
Well, thank you everyone for coming out, and we will see you next in
Yeah.
the new year. All right. Take care.